All right, joining us now, EJ Antoni, Unleash Prosperity Senior Fellow. Welcome back, EJ. EJ, I don't know if you like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, but now's the time to buy them because they are so cheap. In fact, at today's Consumer Price Index, everything was down. Groceries down, peanut butter down, bacon down, eggs down 12.7%. Pretty good. The last couple months, the CPI, I think, is last 3 months of CPI, 1.6% at an annual rate. Everybody said Trump's tariffs were going to blow up. We're going to blow up inflation. I don't see it, EJ.
Yeah, Larry, absolutely. We're seeing the price of eggs plummet. In fact, the category from the CPI under food, where we see things like meat, eggs, poultry, that was one of the biggest contributors to the downward movement in CPI, which was great news for Americans. So inflation has slowed dramatically. In fact, what's really amazing is the rate of price increases that we're seeing in Trump's second term is actually lower than the long-run average that we saw from 2009 through 2020, let alone the rates that we saw under Biden. So, yes, this is absolutely great news. The one thing that gives me a little bit of pause, Larry, is the fact that 2/3 of this survey was basically taken in last month before any of the price increases from tariffs took effect. So I think the impact there is kind of muted. However, here's I think the silver lining, though, is the fact that if we get these trade deals done and if we get these tariff rates down, then the prices are going to come right back down, too. So at that point, I think it's no harm, no foul.
Yeah, of course we can. And it's, it's very interesting. Tariff revenues. Now, I know we've just started, but the baseline tariff has been, the 10% tariff has been in place now for a couple months. And what we're seeing is huge increases in tariff revenues. We may get to $200 billion in that category alone. So I'm just saying tariff revenues are going up. Inflation's going down, and the economy's doing fine. I mean, basically, this is a 3% plus economy. Even Jay Powell, go slow Jay, or whatever Trump calls him, even Jay Powell admits that the economy is very resilient and there's no recession in sight.
Yeah, we're going to have to wait and see, I think, a couple more months, Larry, to find out what exactly customs duties are going to do. In other words, we had huge front running of tariffs where people imported lots of products in order to try to get them into the country before those import taxes got applied. So most of that tariff revenue, I don't think, is going to be repeating itself because, again, we're going to see import volumes drop back down to normal. That being said, we are in, I think, a really good place economically because of what you just mentioned. That 3% plus core GDP growth rate. That's phenomenal. And if we can keep that up, if we can maintain these 3 or even 4% growth rates like we saw during the first Trump administration, you're going to see all kinds of tax revenue go up, not just customs duties. Forget about that. You're going to see personal and corporate income tax really go up as well.
The other thing is, you wrote a good column, the Biden boom, if you will. All those jobs that were painted up in monthlies and quarterlies and yearlies are disappearing. What happened to all the Biden jobs that were taken out of play?
Larry, that's a good question. I think the answer is they never existed. This is actually something we were talking about over a year ago on your show, how not only do we get these huge downward revisions in terms of the monthly job reports where January comes out with a blockbuster number and then February it gets revised down. In March, the January number will get revised down yet again. But then we also get these big annual benchmark revisions. That's a once-a-year procedure that the Bureau of Labor Statistics does. And they look at more accurate data that comes from unemployment insurance records. And that's only available quarterly, and there's a long delay when we get it. So we just don't have it in a timely manner. But when we finally do get this more accurate data set, we can go back and we can revise the previous months. And sure enough, what we find there is that, like you said, a lot of these jobs never even existed. What's really scary is that during the middle of last year, when the Biden administration said we were adding something like 800,000 jobs, it turns out none of them probably existed, at least not in the private sector. If we were adding anything, it was only in government.
Well, it's like, poof, where'd those jobs go? We could talk, I don't know if the BLS is political. I don't know if the CBO is political. I don't know. I don't think they're exactly supply-siders. But I don't even want to. I mean, they've got to go back and figure out a better means of surveying and measuring, at least on the jobs front. All right, the CBO is hopeless on their baselines, but you and I'll talk about that in another segment. But the Bureau of Labor Statistics, they got to be more accurate. They got to have better surveys. They got to do better something, because what they're putting out is very misleading to everybody. I think that's really the issue. Anyway, EJ Antoni, you wrote a great piece on that. We appreciate it. I got to run, but thanks very much for coming on.